Okay, so welcome everyone, and thanks for coming for this second edition of the SymfonyLive conference here in San Francisco. I'm quite happy to see that we have many people today, many US developers using Symfony, and probably some Drupal ones also. That's pretty cool, and we also have quite a few nice companies using Symfony today. So today during this keynote, I want to talk about two different topics. The first one you probably already know about. This is the Symfony release process. So if you follow, the Symfony development mailing list, you probably saw that I sent an email, a post about changing the current Symfony release process. But I want to talk about it today because I'm going to give you more information about why I think that we need to change what we are doing right now and what we've been doing for so many years. So at the beginning of the month, we released Symfony 2.1 final release. After a year of hard work from many contributors, and during the past year, we merged more than 1,000 pull requests, right? And each pull request being a small enhancement, a bug fix, or a big new feature. More than 1,000. It means that it is almost 20 per week, or put another way, almost 4 every single working day. That's a lot. That's really a lot. And that was possible because, we have so many contributors. Hundreds of developers contributed something to Symfony 2.1, and that's great. I'm not even talking about, all the bundle activity we have. We have more than 1,600 bundles right now for Symfony 2. Which should be, more or less what we have for Symfony 1, and it is still growing fast. I'm not even talking about the documentation, of course. A lot of huge activity there. So this is just mind-blowing, really. And, for me, Symfony is like a train, a high-speed train, actually. And you cannot stop that train that easily. Every single day, someone, somewhere in the world, contributes something to Symfony and want to, fix a bug or create a new feature or just, make a small enhancement to what already exists. And whenever it's time to stop the train for a release, this is not that easy. It's not that easy because there is always someone wanting to add this last feature just before the release, or someone wanting to push a last bug fix because it is really important for their use cases. So you can imagine that trying to stop the train for a release is not easy. It takes time, and I'm the one, who try to stop the train from time to time. So what is the next stop? Probably the next Symfony release, Symfony 2.2. But with our current way of doing things, nobody knows, not even me, nobody knows when it will be ready. Right? In 4 months, 6 months, a year, nobody knows. And nobody knows what will be available in this new version. Right? So, before answering the question when Symfony 2.2 will be released, I want to answer one other question. Why do we even have formal releases? Right? If you think about it for a minute, even before Symfony 2.0 was released a year ago, many people started to use it in production for real websites. So, and it looks like that, it worked quite well for them. So what are the benefits of releases? I think that, a release is an amazing thing, a very special moment in the life of a software. Many people worked hard together for a long period of time. The release is the time when everyone who participated can congratulate themselves. Everyone can be proud of what we have done together. This is also something that we can use. A release can be used as a publicity. Blog posts, press releases, tweets and retweets. So the release is a unique opportunity to talk about what we have done so far. And I'm not talking about really, the marketing side of things. It's just about talking about what we do and what we are doing it. Talking with passion about that. A release is also the beginning of another life for the software for the Symfony release. The work we did is now used by a larger number of members of the community, a large number of developers, companies. And it means also that as soon as you make a release, you get a huge amount of testing, real-world testing, right? So the more you release, the more testing you have. And also it means that you have more feedback about what you have been working on for a month. People start to use it for, real-world projects, so they can tell you how Symfony behave in the real world, and they can give you some feedback on how it can be improved. So the conclusion might be, why not making more releases, right? The more we have releases, the better. And so what about, releases every 6 months or every month or every week? And as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that some websites, that make a new release every week or every single day. That's possible. But if we were to release more often, every week or 2 weeks, a lot of the benefits I've just talked about would just disappear, right? It would be just a routine to release a new version. But also because we have users, right? And releases are a good thing for the project itself and for all the contributors, but I think it is also a good thing for customers. It has a lot of value, actually. Whenever a release is published, the core developers just start working right away on the next version, but end users still are going to use the just released version for quite some time. So what about them? They will find bugs, right? Hopefully not that many bugs, but they will definitely find some bugs. And they expect them to be fixed. And if there is a new version of PHP, and if it does not work as expected, and it's more or less always the case, again, you need to fix whatever issues come up. And of course, if there is a security issue, you need to fix it as fast as possible. So our users, they need support. And how long do they need support for any given version? 6 months, a year, 3 years, more than that? So the answer is quite interesting, but I think there is a more important one. And this is, how much time you give them to upgrade from one version to the next one. So whenever you decide to stop supporting a version, how much time they will have to upgrade to the next supported version, right? Are we talking about a month, 6 months? So of course, the longer, the better for the users, right? If you ask the users, they would tell you a year or 3 years or whatever. The longer, the better. But at the same time, code developers don't want to maintain 2 old versions for many reasons, and probably because, with time, the older releases are much different from the current ones. So it is more and more difficult to be able to maintain all the patches for all the versions. And also, as it takes more and more time, the core developers, or less developers are willing to spend time just doing maintenance. So the support needs to be limited in time. And last but probably not the least, as a user, you need to know when the next version will be available, right? So imagine a world in which you have, in advance when the next version will be released, and in advance that you will have X month to be able to upgrade. That would ease a lot of things a lot, right? It would also be of great when you start a new project. If you are starting a new project in January next year, do you need to use Symfony 2.2 or the next version, 2.1, or just wait for 2.2? If you know the release date, you can make a decision. If we don't have the information, it is much more difficult to say. So having more releases is a good thing for everyone. And as I said before, The flow of pull requests has been outstanding for the past 2 years actually, and with such an activity, trying to release often without a clear roadmap is quite difficult. So adopting a more formal release cycle will also give us more visibility and allow everyone to understand when a new feature might be available in Symfony. So let's see the goals for a new process. By the way, the process I'm talking about today is only for the main Symfony repository, right? I'm not talking about the bundles or whatever. I mean, they can adopt the same release process, but right now I'm just talking about the main Symfony repository. So one of the goals is to have more frequent releases, shorten the release cycle, to allow developers to benefit from new features faster. The second one is to give more visibility to the developers using the framework, but also to open source projects using Symfony. The third one is to improve the experience of Symfony, of the Symfony core contributors, right? So that everyone knows when a feature might be available. If it cannot be done for version X, you know that it will be available for the next version, right? Another goal is to be able to coordinate the Symfony timeline with popular PHP projects we are using, like Doctrine, Propel, Ascetic, Twig, whatever, and also with projects using Symfony, of course. And last but not the least, I think this is the most important part, is to give time to the Symfony ecosystem to catch up with the new version. So I'm talking about the bundle authors, the documentation writers, translators, and all the people not directly working on Symfony, but working on stuff based on Symfony. So I propose to adopt a time-based model for Symfony. So instead of waiting for a release to be ready, and we don't really know what it means actually, we know in advance when we are going to have the next release, so we can plan accordingly. So the next question is, what is the right amount of time between two releases? And I think that we can have faster releases with a time-based approach. So I think we can have a new release every 6 months. And this is probably the best compromise. It gives plenty of time to work on new features, but it also allows for non-ready features to be postponed to the next version without having to wait too much time for the next cycle. So 6 months also means that we can fit 2 versions of Symfony in a year, right? And for Symfony, I think it will be at the end of May and November each year. So you don't need to check a website or whatever to know the next version of Symfony when it will be released. You know that there will be a new release in May and another one in November. So that brings predictability and visibility to the release cycle process. 6 months can be seen as a rather short period of time, especially if you look at what we did in the past. For Symfony 1, we did 1 release per year, more or less. It took a year to release Symfony 2.1. But I think we can make it work because of many reasons. But the main ones are because we know the date, so we can plan accordingly. So it will be much more easier to stop the train, actually. Because we have now more people working on Symfony, 100 of developers, so we have more people able to help. Because we have a huge amount of tests, right? And Travis also helps a lot, so we know when we break things. I think Git and GitHub also help a lot because they provide us great tools like easy branching, pull request, reviews, and etc. So that's also help a lot. And also because we are going to plan the 6 months, we are going to cut those 6 months into shorter period of time. First, the development phase. So we work on adding new features and enhancing the existing ones. And during the development phase, we can revert any new feature if we think that we won't be able to finish the feature in time, or if we think that it won't be stable enough to be included in the next version. Then we freeze the code and we enter the stabilization phase. In this phase, we fix bugs, we prepare the release, and we wait for the ecosystem to catch up. And then, probably one of the most important part of any software, the support phase, right? And here is the timeline. 4 months of development, 2 months for stabilization, and 8 months of support. Which means that you have 2 months to upgrade from one version to the next one, right? But that's only half of the story, because we must also talk about long-term support releases. So 8 months of support will be for standard releases, right? And for long-term support releases, I propose to keep what we did for Symfony 1. So each LTS release will be supported for a 3-year period. And I want to give plenty of time to upgrade from one LTS release to the other one. I want to give a year, which means that we will be able to have a new LTS release every 2 years, right? So we are really talking about a dual maintenance scheme, right? And I think we can make everyone happy with this dual thing. If you are a fast mover, if you want to use the latest and the greatest, you can stick with the standard support releases. You have a new version every 6 months, and you have 2 months to upgrade to the next one. If you are a big company, if you want to be, more stability, if you don't want to upgrade that often, then you can stick with the long-term support releases, right? So you get a new version every 2 years, and you get a year to upgrade to the next one, right? So, yeah, to make things a bit more concrete, here is the schedule for the next few versions. So Symfony 2.0 has been released last year. We've just released Symfony 2.1. The next one will be Symfony 2.2, and it's going to be released at the end of February next year. And Symfony 2.3 will be the first long-term support released at the end of May next year. Only 3 months after 2.2, because Symfony 2.3 will be a special release in the sense that we will mainly remove all the backward compatibility for the 2.0 version, and also because I want to to have one release every May and November, so we need to fix that. And then you can guess when Symfony 2.4 is going to be released. Symfony 2.5, 2.6, 2.7 will be the next long-term support release. I can even tell you when Symfony 2.9 will be released, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, hopefully. I think we also need to talk about, backward compatibility, and we need to avoid breaking backward compatibility as much as possible. We cannot afford to break backward compatibility that often, and we did that a lot with Symfony 1. But as we are going to maintain 3 or 4 versions in parallel, but also because the way to make everyone happy is to ensure an easy upgrade from one version to the next one, I think we need to, limit the number of backward compatibility breaks, right? And if you have a look at Twig, I've been able to release a new major version of Twig every 6 weeks, right? Since 1.0. And nowadays we are at 1.10, so 10 releases and one every 6 weeks. And it has been possible because we have kept backward compatibility. We have never broken backward compatibility since 1.0. And of course, also because, the scope of Twig is smaller than Symfony. So the key is keeping backward compatibility, and we must be very careful with that. And after the release of Symfony 2.3, so the first LTS release, backward compatibility will be kept at all cost. We might accept small breaks, very small ones, but never ever on the major components we have. So never on HTTP Foundation, HTTP kernel, dependency injection, even dispatcher, the main ones, right? The routing system. And so for everything else, the feature or the enhancement, if it breaks backward compatibility, we are just going to put that on a list for Symfony 3, right? And the work on the next major version of Symfony will start whenever we think that we have enough great features to make it worth it, right? So I can't tell you when we are going to work on that, but probably not in the next 2 years or 3 years even. So that's the plan for the new Symfony release process. A time-based approach with 2 releases a year, a new LTS release every 2 years, a dual maintenance scheme when you can choose between upgrading every 6 months or upgrading every 2 years. And all of that is going to be possible because we need to be very careful with backward compatibility. And of course, if you want, because on the mailing list, a few people ask for more than 3 years of support. I can tell you that if you want, you can buy support from SensioLabs. And if you do so, you would be the first one, right? So there are many people asking for more than 3 years of support, but none of them called me to say, okay, I want to buy support from you guys. And I'm pretty sure that if you want more than 3 years of support, it means that you have, a solid business, right? So you can probably afford to buy some support. Anyway, okay, so that was about the release process. I know, it was really. I've tried to, talk fast because it's not that sexy to talk about release process, but I think that is quite important to talk about that because it means that, with guys like Drupal and Easy Publish and a lot of different open source projects relying on Symfony, we need to be very clear on what our plans are. Now I want to talk about something totally different. A lot of people keep asking me about how I learned everything I know, how did I learn to write code, and how did I learn about web development best practices, about design patterns and so on. So actually I studied to hack computers when I was very young. So let me tell you a story about my very first personal computer experience. If you have attended the Drupal Munich session or if you have seen the session online, it's not exactly the same, and the end is totally different. There is no murder, no one is going to be killed anyway. So it was Christmas 1984. I was 11 years old, and it was, even if I was very young, I had this one dream at that time, getting my first real computer, personal computer. And we were lucky enough to have, computers at school. But having a personal computer was one of my dreams. And for the younger in the audience, because I know that, a lot of you are quite young, you must know that the early 80s were the beginning of the personal computer era. So having a computer or even having just access to a computer at that time was not that widespread, right? And Santa Claus was kind enough to deliver a computer to me and my brothers for Christmas 1984. And I got an Amstrad CPC 664 with a color monitor. And Amstrad computers were very popular at that time, at least in Europe. I'm not sure they were that popular in the US. And the CPC 664 was probably one of the best computers at that time. And it even had, as you can see on the picture, it even had an internal floppy disk drive. Right? It was so fast, because before you had, the cassette tape deck, so it was just a nightmare. I was really in heaven, really. Have a look at the keyboard. It is just beautiful. Even today, I find it more beautiful than any other keyboard. And actually, this is the only computer I still have at home. I mean, old one, Don't buy, Apple. Just buy an Amstrad. Really beautiful. So anyway, we started to get it out of the box. We removed everything from my desk in my bedroom, and we plugged the screen and the keyboard, and we were ready to try it out. We were so excited. And after switching the machine on, here is what you had. And I want to stop on this screen for a moment, right? Not because it is a blue screen and we are at Microsoft. But by default, when booting the machine, you were on the command line, right? And more interestingly, you were able to start coding right away, right? So you were able to type instructions directly. And thanks to the built-in, text editor, IDE, I don't know, and the built-in basic language, you can see the basic 1.1 line at the top of the screen. It was, just awesome. You didn't need any other software, no IDE, no compiler, nothing. Everything was built in. Just type your program, run it, debug it, and save it on the disk. That was all. And as a matter of fact, the user manual was, about 50 pages, not that much, and everything was really well explained. It took me less than 5 minutes to relearn everything you have just seen on the screen, right? Nowadays, when you buy a machine, getting ready to code is not that easy anymore. You need to install a bunch of software. I mean, installing the software, configuring the software, tweaking the configuration. So a lot of different things to do just, to get started. So I think we need to learn something about the old way, right? How can we make the learning process easy and fun again? How can we make the very first step easy again? And recently, there has been some great initiatives going on. And there is Code Academy, for instance, codeacademy.com, I think. But I think that the new computer science section of the Khan Academy is just awesome. How many of you are aware of the Khan Academy and what it is? Okay, not that many. Okay, so the Khan Academy, the story behind this website is amazing by itself. Sal Khan, the founder, was working for a hedge fund, and during his spare time, he was helping his cousins with math problems. And at some point, because he was helping so many members of his family, he decided to record some videos, and he posted them without any production on YouTube, so that everyone could watch them. And more people started to watch those videos, and he started to realize that he was onto something, right? And instead of creating a company, and he came from a hedge fund, he created a non-profit organization instead, and that's the Khan Academy. And if you want to learn more about how he got started, you can go to TED.com. He did a TED talk about the whole story. It's quite interesting. So the Khan Academy announced a new computer science section a few weeks ago, and it is really awesome. And basically, it allows you to start coding in the browser with JavaScript, and the experience is really great with the video explaining everything, with the fact that you can try things out directly in the browser without installing anything, and you can see the result right away. And okay, this is a snippet of the first video, but I think I don't have the sound, so.
If I want to draw a rectangle, for example, I can just type rect, which stands for rectangle, and in open parentheses, and then 4 numbers separated by commas, then close parentheses and a semicolon. Ta-da! And if you're thinking, what the heck did she just do, then good. That means you're thinking. This thing right here is a function call. Now, a function is kind of like a special ability that your computer has.
So you have the video, you have the sound, you can try things out, you can mess up with the editor, you have cool error messages. I think this is a great initiative, and it can help a lot of young people getting started faster with computer science and programming, without the hassle to install things on their machines. And this is a nice quote from the Node.js creator. So learning how to code is probably still too difficult, right? But thanks to my Amstrad, I learned to code very early, and it was quite easy to get started. But interacting with a machine has always been difficult, and the problem is not solved yet. So let me continue my story about Christmas 1984. And I'm going to tell you one of my very first frustrating experience with computers that I can remember of. So I was very excited to have my own computer, but it was really late. so I didn't want to start coding anything, but I wanted to test the power of the machine. So fortunately, the box came with a game, Am's Golf. When you have, 11 years old, playing golf is not necessarily what you want to do first, but anyway, it was the only game we had. So we put the disk in the computer, and we typed the usual run disk command at the prompt. Yeah, the syntax looks kind of awkward, really, but disk was just the name of the program we wanted to run on the disk, right? And after some wait, you were, greeted with this beautiful splash screen, and here comes the interesting part. The computer asks you to press space to begin, right? And all right, easy enough. And yeah, I've just pressed the space letters, right? But nothing happened. And we waited some time, as we thought, the computer was probably doing something interesting just before running the game, whatever. But no, even after, a solid 5 minutes of wait, nothing. Okay, I know. I've probably made a typo, right? Let's start again. Let's press space again. No, it still doesn't work. And, okay. I made a mistake, I made a typo, so I need to reboot the machine and try again, right? Why not? Now, type the letters slowly to avoid any typos, right? But no luck. The damn machine did not want to understand what I was trying to tell it, right? I have another idea. We must probably press the return key at the end, right? Good idea. Yeah. No. It does not get any better. We got stuck there for a while, really. And we were about to give up, really. And by chance, someone just, hit the space bar key on the keyboard. And, we had no idea how we got it right, but we were in, right? And now, here is the next screen. Yeah, the sound was really awful. Are you kidding me? Really? I've tried everything for the last hour, right? And now you ask me to read the damn instructions? And that's a typical problem in our industry, right? Everything is so complicated for newcomers. It makes me smile today, but, I can tell you that I was very upset at that time. And of course, fixing it would have been easier enough. Makes the text more explicit to, better explain what the computer expects from the user, or perhaps just put a space word in lowercase to avoid any confusions, right? But the problem is that it was probably so obvious for the developer that he probably didn't even thought about, the possible problems for regular users. And probably because at that time, the developer was the only person working on the game. He was the developer, the project manager, everything, really. And that's what I wanted to point out with this story. Even the simplest screen can be difficult to understand for users. So you can imagine for a framework, right? And during the last few years, I thought a lot about these problems and how we can fix those space issues. And so what about Symfony 2? And I'm the first to admit that we are not there yet. We have a lot of space issues in Symfony 2. But at least we are working out to make the usage of Symfony as simple as possible. That's not easy because we try to follow best practices. We try to promote design patterns. We try to be the best framework for professional developers. But at the same time, we need to make sure that Symfony is easier and easy to grasp and to understand and to use and to learn for newcomers. So what have we done already? Whenever we can, we try to improve the error messages, for instance, we have in Symfony. We try to catch common errors, and this is an example. So the Symfony class loader will tell you if there is a mismatch between a class name or the namespace and the file name you have on disk, right? And without this, I can tell you, you can lose hours trying to figure out why your class is not autoloaded, right? Hours, really. Just because of a stupid typo. And yeah, the Symfony console or Twig gives you suggestion when you make a typo. So here I've typed cache clear with 2R. It suggests you that perhaps I meant cache clear. So this is useful. It can save hours of work. And we also have the web debug toolbar and the profiler. It is of great help when you have a problem and you want to analyze things. I'm working right now. I'm working really hard to extract this so that even if you are using Drupal, you would be able to use the Symfony web debug toolbar and the profiler. I've just submitted a pull request to make this possible. Actually, for Silex, it already works, so we are almost there. And that's also why we created a Symfony Standard Edition for Symfony 2. So this is also a step in that direction. I wanted to simplify the very first moment, the very first minutes you have with the framework. That's why you can download an archive, with all the vendors included into the archive. That's why the Symfony Standard Edition comes with a set of pre-configured bundles. And that's why we also have this small application where you can configure Symfony without editing any configuration file. And also, we have some examples and code examples you can learn directly from the package you download. We also have, a nice screencast, a lot of cookbooks really in the documentation, but at the same time, we are still lacking some great stuff we had in Symfony 1, like, a JavaScript-like tutorial, or an admin generator, bundle into Symfony. So there is room for improvement, but we are working on it. And so anyway, at some point, you will need to open, a composer.json file to add a dependency or update a dependency, or we will need to edit some configuration file in YAML or XML. You will definitely have to go to the command line to type some commands. So how can we make those things easier too, right? I know that many of you probably think that those are the basics, and that everybody should be able to edit a YAML or an XML file, or run something on the command line. But the reality is really different. How many developers just do not want to use the command line? A lot. How many of you here? Don't be shy. Just one? Just Larry? No. 2. Okay. You are hardcore developers, really. So one answer can be, using IDEs, right? Eclipse, NetBeans, PHP Storm. They have some native integration with Symfony and Twig, but many people find those IDEs too slow, and they prefer to use a text editor like TextMate, Sublime Text, or VI, or even Emacs. I don't know, whatever. And the problem is exactly that. There are so many options out there, and take 2 random developers. They are probably not using the same text editor or IDE. So I want to come back to Composer a bit and talk about Composer. Just in case you don't know Composer yet, this is probably one of the best things that happened to PHP since a very long time, actually. It's a very, it's a great tool to manage your code dependencies in a much better way than what the per installer did, but at the same time with an increased complexity. With per, you had to run just one command to install a dependency, and the dependency was installed globally on your machine, so we were done. With Composer, you need to create a composer.json file in your project. You need to try to not mess up with the composer.json file when you add a dependency. then you need to run the composer install tool on the command line. So by trying to get it right, composer is also more complex than pair. And that's a common pattern. Solving a problem the right way leads to more complexity most of the time, right? And most developers in the community do not perceive the increased complexity because they learned everything as we created them, right? So along the way. So for experienced developers, no big deal, really. But for newcomers, it is one more thing to learn before being able to use Symfony. And all those things can make the very first, moment with the framework frustrating. And as you can imagine, this is not a good thing. So I've been thinking about this problem for quite a long time now, and I'm quite proud today to introduce you to a new tool we have been working on for many months here now to try to solve some of the issues I've just talked about. So it's called SensioLabs Desktop. And SensioLabs Desktop is a desktop application that you run on your machine, and it tries to ease the management of your PHP project. So it does not replace your IDE or text editor. It's more an add-on to your regular text editor. So you connect with your SensioLabs Connect account, and then, as you can see on the left, you have access to the project you have created on your Connect account. And for each project, you can, locate a project if it's already available on your machine, or you can clone it from Git if you provided the repository URL, or just to clone it locally. And in the next version, you will be able to just bootstrap a new Symfony project without doing anything, so directly from here. And after setting up the project, you have access to a bunch of features, and those features are quite limited right now because it's just a preview release, but with time, more cool stuff will become available. So the main feature I want to talk about now is the composer integration. SensioLabs Desktop abstracts the composer complexity, and it allows you to manage your dependency from a nice interface. So first, if you create a new project with no composer.json file, Desktop is able to bootstrap the file for you. Just need to give it a name and done. And then you can add new dependencies. So as you can see, there is an autocomplete thing, so you don't need to remember the exact name of the package. You have all the available versions, so again, you don't need to remember the latest version you want to install. So you can add many features and many dependencies, and you can type the version if you want, dev master if it's not in the combo. And after doing that, so the composer.json file is written on disk, and then you can run the command. As you can see in real time, you have all the installed dependencies that are displayed on the screen. So the gray ones are the ones that are dependencies of dependencies, and you can also click here at the bottom on the arrow so that you can see the output of the composer command. So yeah, just wait. Have a look at the screen, and you have all your dependency installed in your vendor directory, right? And of course, you can also edit what you have. So you can change the version. You can just update one specific dependency if you want. You can, tick the checkbox so that it's only installed in the development mode. You can remove dependencies and so on. So we have tried to have all the features you are always using directly available into this interface. Right? So you don't need to mess up with your composer.json file. Everything is taken care of for you. And of course, if you want to edit the composer.json file, you can also do that. You can run composer from the command line, and the interface is updated in real time. Right? So that's the main feature of SensioLabs Desktop, and so with the composer integration, you can bootstrap your composer.json file. You can add, edit, remove dependencies. You have autocomplete with the package names, and all the packages listed on the packages website. You have real-time update of all the changes You have dependencies of the dependencies. So you have the composer output. You have the visual feedback, so you don't need to, display the output. If it's green, it's okay. If it's red, there's a problem. You need to fix that. And also, you don't need to download and upgrade the composer tool itself. So if you don't have Composer installed on your machine, it's going to download the software for you and update it on a regular basis. So you don't even need to install Composer if you want. But you can if you want to have a specific version of Composer, you can also do that. We also have the integration of the Symfony command line tool. So I will let you use it and discover how it works, but this is the same philosophy as for Composer. So you can do everything from the interface. You can list all the available commands. You have the autocomplete with namespace support. We manage arguments and options, of course. You have the command output display. You have visual feedback, and it works with any tool using the Symfony console component, right? Not just Symfony. So, for instance, PHP Documenter or EasyBook. There are two projects using the Symfony command line tool, so just works out of the box, right? So it is available for the Mac, of course. I don't know why I say of course, because, Anyway, so you can also use it on Linux. And actually, the Linux version is the most beautiful one. I don't know why. And the ugliest one is the Mac one. I mean, seriously. And it is also available on Windows. So get the one you want, Windows, Mac, or Linux. It works out of the box. Same interface, same features. It's free, of course. And if you want to get it now, it is probably available now. You can go to desktop.sensiolabs.org and download the version you want. But remember, this is just a preview release. The features are rather limited right now, but we wanted to get feedback as early as possible. So, if you have any feedback on the website, you have a box you can fill in so that you can tell us what you think about SensioLabs Desktop. And in parallel, we're already working on some cool features like notifications when there are new versions of Symfony that are released, or if there is a security fix for a Symfony release, you will have a notification on your machine directly. Web server logs integrations, Travis integration if you are using Travis, disconnected mode, and much more actually. So that's SensioLabs Desktop, and I hope you will enjoy using it, and hopefully it's going to make things a bit easier for Symfony and PHP developers for newcomers. That's it for today. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.